Hello, everyone, and welcome to Comic Book Cove. I'm Tom Morris.
And I'm Josh Holderbaum.
Josh, this week in our comic book discussions, I think a lot of the titles, a lot of the characters we are starting to learn about for the first time in a long time.
Yeah. A lot of retellings of classic origins, some new tangents they've gone on for a lot of different characters.
Yes.
And that's certainly one of the themes of DC Rebirth is to get new fans associated with these characters, and also to for DC to move those origins in the direction they want them to go in.
Yes, giving different iterations of characters that we might not have thought of possible, and expanding on classic development. So I think this week of this episode of Comic Book Discussion will really focus on learning these characters all over again, and in some cases, learning different Earths all over again.
And then watching that Earth go away.
Yes. This episode of Comic Book Cove, we are going to discuss the following issues. Suicide Squad number 2, Earth 2 Society number 16, Deathstroke number 2, Red Hood and The Outlaws number 2, All-Star Batman number 2, and Batgirl and the Birds of Prey number 2. And as always, spoilers ahead. Suicide Squad number 2, The Black Vault Part 2, Blitzkrieg. We find out that the mission to infiltrate this Russian station doesn't go very well, because at the very end of it, the prize is General Zod.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah. It seems like it looks like from the beginning Amanda Waller's essentially doing this for another government agency. She's working with a NSA liaison named Harcourt, and she's working for yet another agency, an agency that even Amanda Waller doesn't seem privy to.
Yes.
And Amanda Waller has a lot of pull in the DC universe, so
big time.
If she doesn't know this agency, that that might not be good.
No. The person says we are working for a mutual interest, and she was here to see how good the team, how was the team as good as their reputation. And at first, looks like everything's hopeless. Deadshot and Boomerang, Captain Boomerang, they fire a missile to open up the door. Well, Boomerang makes it so that it boomerangs back, back to him, and then blows up. And Deadshot says, "You boomeranged a missile?" He goes, "I boomerang everything." I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah. It's a lot of fairly good team cohesion in this issue, and Suicide Squad's not a team that has a lot of good teamwork. But I mean, Katana saves both Harley and Killer Croc out in the water. Croc ends up saving both Katana and Harley when he gets them into the base, and Harley and Katana basically make short work of pretty much every Russian guard, although Boomerang does take out like one of them.
And while they were fighting, Katana is very efficient. Harley Quinn is trying to have this talk about, well, what is your thoughts on neoliberalism and some other issues with our planet and with our society, and all the while they're just plowing through all these guards.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, in pretty violent ways.
Yes.
Too. It's worth noting that.
Yes.
That was pretty eyebrow raising. Like, whoa, okay.
They went in to get an informant, and she's a cool character. You said her name was Hack.
Hack, which is a hard name for me to call her. I mean, I think of Hack as coughing or someone who's kind of like washed up.
She's a computer hack.
Yeah.
Who happens to be a big Harley Quinn fan, as she had Harley Quinn face tattooed on her forearms, which Harley Quinn you will hear from my image rights lawyer.
And the little diamonds on her cheek. Too, yeah.
She ends up digitizing them to go into this chamber where it's a black sphere, which we did say earlier that Zod is being held into. But Hack was hearing computer talk about something about the Phantom Zone. As soon as Flag hears that, he's ready to pull the team back to get away from that sphere, because it starts to move. Zod comes out and heat visions poor Captain Boomerang. The only thing's left of Captain Boomerang is his boots. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's not called the Suicide Squad for nothing.
Right.
They do, axe characters at certain points, and that's what the classic Suicide Squad kind of was, a way for DC to get rid of some of the, lamer supervillains they had. But it's a little hard to see that with Captain Boomerang, especially since the backup feature is a solo story about Captain Boomerang.
Which I thought was awesome.
Yeah,
it was hilarious.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that backstory a little bit?
It's Amanda Waller speaking to Captain Boomerang, a lot like her discussion with Deadshot in the backup story to the previous one. And she's trying to get through to Captain Boomerang just about the team, and he's spinning tall tales, let's call them, about who he is, and he's one of the Australian government's best secret agents of all time, and that he's this Australian national hero who's
this James Bond-esque.
Yeah, who's beaten the Flash numerous times, although the Flash has beaten him just a few every once in a while, and he fights this arch criminal called the Drop Bear, which is a like Australian hoax about carnivorous koalas that drop out of trees and kill people, and the Drop Bear is hollowed out Ayers Rock, and as Captain Boomerang approaches, he says, "Wow, that's really culturally insensitive," and he says that a couple times. That's so culturally insensitive, and it's this weird, just like it makes him look really good. It makes Australia look really good.
Right.
It's this just fantasy land that he creates for himself.
Right. The lies upon lies that he creates, because deep down inside, he is all messed up from when he was his kid. His father left him and never came back, and that's what his infatuation is with boomerangs, is that they always come back, so he started making boomerangs. I also liked it when they asked, and one of his tall tales was, I needed to go undercover. So he's in a little James Bond tuxedo, but he's still wearing his Captain Boomerang hat. Okay, but like you said, this is his story, and he'll tell it. And eventually, he's told so many lies that he believes it himself, which was hilarious to me.
Yeah, and it's also funny to see when Amanda Waller kind of stops. Kind of stops believing what he's saying. Is he mentions that he meets a girl named Sheila Upforit.
Yep.
And Amanda Waller says, "Okay, I highly doubt Sheila Upforit was there."
Exactly.
It just makes me laugh that that's the point when Waller says, "Yeah, no, I'm not buying this."
Do you think Captain Boomerang is truly dead?
It'll be interesting to see. One of the things I did think about...
I mean, we did see him being... All that's left is boots.
Yeah.
But anything can happen.
Yeah. And, I mean, they did all just get digitized by Hack, who teleported him into that room. It makes me wonder if it would be like, Star Trek or something, and they have, like, his transporter signature.
Okay.
Maybe she could just re-digitize another Captain Boomerang. I also kind of wonder, I mean, maybe these Suicide Squatters are all clones of the real villains. I mean, that would explain how Harley could be on the Suicide Squad and also be in her own comic.
Yes.
It would also explain how Croc can be in this, and he also makes an appearance in All-Star Batman, which we'll be talking about later. And that would be kind of hard. It's hard to reconcile right now. Maybe they'll explain how that works at the end, but I kind of hope Boomerang's not dead, because that follow-up issue really makes you want more Captain Boomerang.
The amazing... fictitious adventures of Captain Boomerang, because that was fictitious to say.
I almost want just an ongoing series of just his fantasies. That would be great. Even just a limited series of his fantasies. That would be really great. Captain
Boomerang, that backstory was good. Suicide Squad, this issue, I thought was a good story. I thought it was giving it was fleshing out a lot more of the characters and them starting to work together. That's what I took away from this, starting to get to know the characters, and I like this issue.
Yeah, and especially having these follow-ups, too. It's a good introduction, like we've said with a lot of these DC Rebirth titles, to get new readers introduced to these characters. So I'm excited to see if they'll do the rest of the team for these, which I'm kind of assuming they will. And that'll be neat to see what twists they put on those characters. Because, I mean, we've had the Deadshot one in the previous issue. We had Captain Boomerang this one. Both of those were just they were stellar.
Yes,
I mean, they were really, really great.
So there might be a lot more surprises here in Suicide Squad in the issues ahead. Earth 2 Society number 16, A Whole New World finale.
Well, so we just jumped into the New 52 Earth 2 series after not really following that. And we find out the New 52 Earth 2 has kind of been maybe wiped out of existence or being rewritten at the very end. So any changes we had on Earth 2 are going to be pretty different in the future.
Just as we get into Earth 2 and say, hey, these are very cool characters. There's a lot of reimagining the characters, a lot of modernization of the characters with different races. And this is different than when you think of Earth 2, a lot of comic book fans will think of the golden age of comic books. But when DC did the New 52, they took Earth 2 and made it more contemporary.
Yeah.
And from what I looked at, from what I saw, it was able to take a lot more diversity and a lot more storytelling, and it seemed to work. It seems to work so far. That being said, we're just now getting into it, and character, the Ultra Humanite, is about to wipe out the whole Earth 2.
Yeah. He wants to essentially recreate Earth 2 in his own, presumably his own image, which is the term they always use, but an Earth 2 that he controls using Pandora's casket.
Exactly.
Yeah, and of course the heroes don't want that to happen, so at the very end, Fury opens the casket to...
Fury looks like their Wonder Woman?
Yeah, I'm assuming she would be the counterpart to the classic Fury. I don't know which one she is, if she's Hippolyta Trevor or Helena Cosmatos, because I know too much about Wonder Woman. but yeah, essentially the sort of the successor to her.
Right.
Because Infinity Incorporated had a Fury on it who was the daughter of the original Golden Age Wonder Woman.
Okay.
So, and since Earth 2, Diana got killed off when Darkseid and his forces invaded.
Yes.
Presumably she's the replacement for her.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, the more things change, the more they stay the same. And what we have in this issue is a confrontation, a classic confrontation between a Green Lantern and a Arrow. This time, instead of being Green Arrow, calls himself Red Arrow. And you had talked about that this is, it's always kind of a theme. These two will always kind of have confrontations.
Yeah. Even though it's not the classic pairing of Hal Jordan and Oliver Queen, it's still, we have the the mind-controlled Alan Scott and this kind of older, more disheveled-looking Oliver Queen.
Yes.
Facing off, which is a lot like what happened at the end of the old Zero Hour comic with the Parallax-possessed Hal Jordan facing off against Oliver Queen. And it is kind of, I mean, on one hand, it's hilariously mismatched because you have the guy who can create anything versus the guy who shoots arrows at people. And it seems like it's going to be a squash in any Lantern's favor, but it seems like, I mean, both of those cases, Green Arrow can get in people's heads.
Yes.
I mean, he manages to really do that with Alan Scott in this issue, and essentially forces him to almost force the Ultra Humanite's influence out of him. And, I mean, of course, the Ultra Humanite then shows up in person and takes out Ollie. But
he did.
It is funny that is one of Oliver Queen's biggest strengths, it seems like, is he has a really great wit, and he can think on his feet. And he takes out the Green Lantern just by saying, yeah, you have a ring. That's all you have.
Right.
I may have arrows, but all you have is a ring.
Oh, he did get to him. The villain, Ultra Humanite. Give me a little backstory about the Ultra Humanite.
Well, the Ultra Humanite is a really old DC character. He was originally essentially a bald mad scientist. Looked a lot like Lex Luthor. He was an old Superman villain. Once Lex Luthor became a bald mad scientist, they kind of couldn't use the Ultra Humanite as a bald scientist anymore. So he ended up in his kind of now iconic form as a flat white gorilla with a kind of enlarged cranium at some point in the 80s. And it's worth noting, too, he's the first recurring comic book supervillain.
Okay.
I mean, when he first debuted, usually every villain got either killed off at the end of that issue or somehow nullified, or they just decided they didn't want to commit crimes, or they were locked up forever. And he was the first one to pop up twice. So that's pretty impressive for comics. I mean, he's kind of a cool character. He only pops up every now and then. He ends up being sort of a Justice Society villain. So, I mean, he's certainly tied to the the Golden Age style heroes.
Right.
So it's no surprise that he shows up on Earth too.
Speaking of him showing up on Earth too, looks like he was about ready to open Pandora's casket when they stop him, but then Fury says the only way to stop him is to open it up ourselves.
Yeah.
Once she starts opening it up, all the panels start to go white, and it looks like in a blind flash of light, Earth 2 is gone.
Yep.
I guess we picked the wrong time to get to know Earth 2 because it's gone.
Yeah, well, and it's, again, that's a lot like the old Zero Hour comic. After, Hal and Ollie have their fight, everything goes to white.
Yep.
And, it's just that funny sort of allusion to that. But it'll be interesting to see if they, presumably they're going to do an Earth 2 rebirth, sort of, at some point. It'll be interesting to see if they stick to sort of the New 52 modernizations, or if they go back more to the classic Golden Age interpretations of some of these characters.
They have 52 Earths in the DC multiverse. So I would think that there would be a place for this modernization, New 52, Earth 2. And if they do want to bring back the Golden Age superheroes, they can bring them back on another Earth, because these characters are different. And we still have your modern, I want to say your classic, you have your Golden Age that people remember, and you have more of a modernization, and there's good stories to be told with all of them. And that's really what it's about, is good stories. So if I was DC, I would say, let's put a little twist on it, but let's keep these characters and create different stories where if you're a writer, you know that you can create something new with these characters, that you don't have to be, you can respect the legacy and also kind of create your own.
Yep.
I think that's what these Earth 2 characters represent. But hopefully we get to read more about them, because, hey, we get one issue in and all of a sudden everything seems to be wiped out.
Yeah.
But I do know that there will be an Earth 2 Society issue 17 next month that will be out. So maybe we still have a few more issues to go before we see what the plan is for Earth 2.
Yeah. Well, and it might not be a bad idea just kind of to take the plot sort of back to the beginning.
Yes.
For those new, the readers who are just getting into it, like us.
Like us.
Where we'll be able to pick up 17 and say, oh, okay, we get it now.
Right.
We didn't necessarily get the giant fight scene with lots of characters. We didn't necessarily know.
But it wasn't really, it wasn't overwhelming. It wasn't where you would say, no, this is just too much. I don't know any of these characters. It was kind of, okay, we get to see a little of these in action, and maybe they'll reintroduce to new readers, like you said, like ourselves. That was something I would look forward to. And with that, we're going to take our first break, and when we come back, we will discuss Deathstroke #2 and Red Hood and the Outlaws #2. We'll be back in just a moment.